My name is Erica St. Bernard, and my content is Queen.
You should know that you can't win with just the king on the board. Content is queen. Listen, you'll see.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Content is Queen. I am super excited to talk to my client and some inspiration as well, Miss Erica St. Bernard. Welcome to Content is Queen.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, this podcast is really about celebrating the female content creator. And what I love about this conversation is that we get to tease out the types of content that queens are creating every single day. And you as a clinical therapist, did I say that right? What is the
marriage and family? Yes, licensed clinical marriage and family therapist. Long title.
Yes, and my husband and I just completed her workshop, which was so dope and so amazing. And all of the content that we collected in this whole experience, we reference whenever we argue, like, remember what Erica said? Remember when we talked about that? And I think that's something that as a woman, we bring to the table a little bit differently. And talk to me a little bit about your background, your experience, and what drove you to become a marriage counselor.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So my undergrad was in education, and I knew from little girl that I wanted to teach. I knew that for sure. And so I went into the classroom. I completed my undergrad at Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland, HBCU, completed my undergrad there, and then went into teaching at an independent private school in Baltimore. And there I was one of a few Black staff. And so that was awakening. That was an awakening moment for me, because prior to that, all my experience had been pretty predominantly Black. And so I had this identity, not so much of a crisis, more of an identity realization, where I acknowledged that, wow, this melanated skin presents me and provides me an opportunity to do some greater things than I anticipated. So while I was there teaching, loving my students, I realized that they were struggling. And it wasn't an academic struggle, it was a social struggle. And they were struggling because home was a challenge. Parents were fighting, parents weren't together, just lots of home strife. And so I wondered, what could I do to be helpful? As a believer, I began praying and asking God to lead me and to show me what was next. It didn't take too long before I went to an open house in South Florida, where my husband was moved there for ministry. I went to an open house for marriage and family therapy, and it was like the skies opened up, all the birds were chirping, clearly like, this is because you'll get to meld the love you have for education and empowering people with the skills that they need to have quality relationships. And so for me, that was the shifting point. That was the turning point. The open house was completed, and I was registering for classes and fell in love with the marriage and family therapy program. And so that's how I'm here, a part of it anyway.
Well, I'm glad you had that moment, because when I say we, all of the couples that were in your workshop, after every session, we were all like, are you sure you're not taking new clients? Are you sure? Because we need this on a one-on-one level. And it just was refreshing to see that so many other Black couples were showing up for your workshop. And I think it was a couple of things. One, you yourself, strong Black woman, you did not come off as like, this is going to be like, shoved down your throat, because, it's hard to get the man to the table, to things like this. And two, you were so welcoming. And I think that's something that, the Black community needs to see more. And there's such a stigma around therapy. And I see, now with your new website launching very soon, with the content that will be on there, what type of content are you working on to help break that stigma that's so prevalent in the Black community?
Sure. One of the things I always do in any platform, and I appreciate this opportunity here, is to highlight that I am a therapist who is in therapy. I think when we normalize therapy from a conversational level, when we just talk about the things our therapists have shared with us or the growth we've experienced as a result of therapy, it really brings things to level playing field, where it's not only the people who are super wealthy, certainly not only the white people, certainly not only people of a certain standard of living, but that it is accessible to all of us. And so I really do, in the work I do and the writing I do, I try to engage from a very relatable perspective, really wanting to meet people where they are and help them to see that there is better, there is more, there is something different. And so really empowering people to realize that, yes, there are stigmas. And the way to break those is to acknowledge that they are just that, they are stigmas. They are intended to keep us away from the things that would help us be well. And so when we talk about being well, living well, and loving well, kind of the three taglines of my practice, really wanting to help people realize that wellness is available to us. And sometimes therapy in individual spaces and couple spaces, and sometimes in a group dynamic, can be really beneficial. And so for me, it is really just that. It is trumpeting loud and clear on social media, in personal conversations, in presentations, in workshops, in interviews, that therapy works if we work it. If we show up with an intention to allow this to be a space where we can grow and benefit from it, then that's exactly what can happen. It's not instant, right? I don't want you to think you're going to log in to your therapy session or show up at the office, and by the time you finish that 50 or 90-minute session, everything is great. That is not the case. However, over time, as you put in the work, you do begin to see the fruits of your labor and the efforts that you put forward.
I love that. Yes, definitely. It's a two-way street. You have to put in the effort to make it happen. So I see that you were listed on Therapy for Black Girls. What does that mean exactly to have you listed? And what is it about your practice and you yourself as a practitioner that you think that they recognize you as a go-to resource?
Sure. So Therapy for Black Girls is a directory founded by Dr. Joy Harden Bradford, a psychologist in the Atlanta area. And she created this directory with the intention of allowing people of color, not just women, but it is called Therapy for Black Girls, to find clinicians who look like them. A segue to the first question you asked about how I became an MFT, which is a marriage and family therapist. I looked at the directories that existed prior to, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, probably. And so many of the people featured in directories were lily white. There was not a Black face in sight. And if it was, they were nowhere near me geographically. And so I wondered, how could I diversify the field of marriage and family therapy specifically, because there are tons of Black social workers, tons of Black licensed professional counselors. There are several, licensed psychologists and psychiatrists. And so finding a way to diversify marriage and family therapy specifically, because I knew I had a heart for couples, that was what drove that. And so the Therapy for Black Girls is a directory. It is a paid subscription, but she also does have a podcast. And so it is my intention at some point to be hosted on the podcast as well, to share some content, some information that would be beneficial to her listeners.
In this journey that you're on as a therapist and helping people, what have you found as the most successful content that helps people relate to the process? Because a lot of times when practitioners, no matter what the industry that you're in, you have to do a soft introduction so that people don't get intimidated or feel like it's not for them. What have you found, even if it's not you producing it, that you've seen in your industry that's like, okay, this helps people understand your practice?
For me personally, it is my sense of humor. I am silly and playful, as you saw in the series that we did together. I laugh. I encourage you to laugh, even when it's not funny, right? And I'm not laughing at you, but we're laughing together through the tough stuff. And I have clients, young and old, who appreciate that. They say, oh, I know we're gonna get to the meat of things, but we're also there's gonna be some levity along the way. And I think that for me continues to prove to be a very wise resource, in that I use my wit, I use my ability to laugh and to, challenge people to grow. And so I really do see that as valuable. I think the other thing is, again, being a human being. I tell my clients that I struggle with some of the same stuff. I don't go into detail. I don't give all my business, but I do share that I'm in therapy, that I'm working through some things, that this is what I'm learning as I do my work, my individual work. And so really empowering people to realize that I'm not here and they're down here because I'm a clinician, but that sometimes we in the same space doing some of the same work, except being mindful to create spaces where that can happen. Because again, in no way, shape, or form should this session become about me, but it is an opportunity for me to highlight that we're both human, both having a very human experience and needing to find the resources that will serve us well. And so I think when clinicians are able to humanize the experience of what it is to work on relationships, what it is to work on yourself, what it is to practice self-care, what it is to do the work whatever work we need to do, there is an empowering thing that happens for people. It's like, oh yeah, so I'm not by myself. And I've had many clients say, I appreciate your willingness to be transparent and to be candid about the fact that you haven't figured it all out, that as much as you are sharing this wisdom and insight with me, you're also doing the work yourself, reading the books, practicing, going to therapy, going to workshops, and so forth.
I love that. So how has social media played into your overall goal of supporting the Black community and marriage and just the whole institution of marriage? because I find myself when I'm in a funk or I had an argument with my husband, or, even the smallest things, I go to social media to laugh and to joke and to take the weight off of what I'm feeling, to kind of say, it's not just me. How do you use social media to really drive your mission as a practitioner?
One thing I do, and I've done it with a colleague of mine, haven't done too much in the realm of marriage. I've done a few workshops here and there, but my girlfriend and I, Dr. Bernasha Anderson, licensed in DC. She and I did a series on IG called Girl Get Your Healing. And so we were very intentional to highlight various modes and modalities of healing. We don't all do everything the same way. And so everything won't work for everybody, but we talked about yoga, we talked about acupuncture, we talked about breath work, we talked about the power of journaling, we talked about the power of play. And so really inviting people to have conversations about wellness in its fullest form. So we're not just thinking about only wellness in terms of my physical body. We did talk to, or we'll talk to a dietitian and think through some things with regard to that, but wanting to really open the conversation and make it a broader conversation beyond just, I need to get my mind right. But what does that look like? Play is a part of getting your mind right. It looks like having healthy relationships. That's a part of getting your mind right. Getting your healing means being open to a variety of different resources that could be super helpful for you. And so again, presenting information so that people create a curiosity, and then in response to that curiosity, begin to seek out other resources. And so that's the hope, is to create an appetite for more. And so that's what I intend to do when I did the launch for the We Over Me Principles for Marital Partnership series. My intention was to, as you suggested, create a space where men and women could come together. And I wrestled with, do I do it just for the wives, or do I do it for couples where the intention is for couples? And I vacillated between the two. And I said, no, do it for couples, and make sure that you are welcoming and warm and engaging, so that the men see this as a safe space for them. This will not be the women against the men, but really a space where we equalize the conversation and make sure that all parties are able to express and experience the benefits that are available.
I love that. So in this journey, you've learned a lot, you've made mistakes, you've had successes. If you can go back and talk to Erica 20 years ago, what would you say to her to prepare? Because I know if I could talk to 18-year-old Layla, 25-year-old Layla, it will be a real deep conversation about just let your hair down, relax. What would your conversation with yourself 20 years ago, 25 years ago sound like?
Yeah, I think my conversation with Erica would sound like, keep going. In that season, I was trying to figure things out. I wasn't really sure. And the reality is 20 years later, I'm still trying to figure things out. A lot of times I'm sure, and sometimes I'm not. And so I think we assume that when you get to a certain age, whatever that age is that you have in mind, that you will have it all figured out, and you will be crystal clear about all the details of life. And then life happens, and things shift and things change. And so at 20, that was 20 years ago, thinking about, who I was then, I, was in college. And so it would definitely be to keep going, to keep doing the work, to continue to trust God, because that was, a foundational principle for me. My relationship with Christ continues to be, pivotal for me as I navigate through all of the things that life is doing and providing opportunities for in this season. And so it would definitely be just to keep going and to lean into the discomfort, because at that point in time, I was like, if it's not comfortable, I don't want to do it. And I've learned over time that sometimes the uncomfortable thing is the very thing that has the opportunity to shift perspective or provide you with a context and an understanding that allows you to thrive and move forward. And so it will be keep going and trust the process, and stay rooted in your faith.
I love that, because at the end of the day, I've quit in my mind 1,000 times. And if I did, I would not be sitting here talking to you, which I'm really blessed and excited about. There's a lot of, I take mentorship very seriously, and I want to make sure I bring up the next generation of marketers to show up and, be in a position to present Black women in a way, in our marketing assets and our messaging authentically, and really capture the power of this. I feel like it's a movement right now around Black women, which I love. What would you say to the next generation of marriage therapists who want to enter into this space, specifically Black women? What would you say to help them prepare for the journey ahead of them?
Great question. I would say, build your tribe now. I'm telling you the truth, and without giving you all my business on this podcast, I am grateful to God sincerely for the friends God has entrusted me with in this season. I'm actually about to write a piece for my blog entitled Aligned Some Way with Aligned and Assigned to Your Life. There are people that I believe without a shadow of a doubt, God has aligned or assigned to my life, specifically for this season. And then if I look back, I can see that there've been other people strategically placed along my life's journey who were there to guide me, to offer mentorship indirectly, people who were ahead of me or people who were sometimes peers with me in the same space at the same time, who had insight that I didn't have. And so I would say build your tribe by being open. Drake said no new friends. He didn't know what he was talking about. Make new friends. Be open to new opportunities to connect and meet with people. I have a colleague who's I've witnessed, she has this hashtag that she posts often that says, community over competition. So it's community over competition. And when I saw her at a series of workshops that she facilitated, I saw clinicians of different disciplines. And so, of course, there were some psychiatrists, there were some psychologists, there were licensed professional therapists. I'm a marriage and family therapist. There were doulas. And so there were all these different intersectionalities, and she was bringing us all together, not even because the content was aligned with each of our work, but because of who she was. And so this notion of community being essential to our ability to thrive and do great things. And I know that that's true, especially for the marriage and family therapy realm, because while years since I've joined, there's been an increase in the number of Black and Brown people serving in this capacity. However, you have to seek your people out. So when you're looking at the directories, make note of people. That's how Dr. Banasha and I met. We were online in an IG live together. I saw her face. Her photo had these big, beautiful curls and this big bright lip. And I was like, where is she? And so I looked for her online and I sent her a DM and I was like, hey, don't mean to be weird. We're in this IG live together. I see that you're in DC, would love to connect. And there sparked this really beautiful sistership that is continuing to grow. And so again, I say it's important to build your village, build your tribe, because they will support you. They will offer resources. They will share information with you. They'll help you grow. They'll help you learn. And it will be something you'll be better for as a result of doing it.
I love that. And just to go back to the whole marketing component of this, building your tribe can take on a lot of different directions. And for me, and what we're going to expect from your new website, yourlifewell.com, is email, joining the newsletter, blog content, follow you on social media. And as a content creator, those tools are essential to driving this amazing engagement and hopefully convert into new business. So I think that if you want to be a content creator, no matter what industry you're in, having those tools in your toolbox is essential. With that, I want to say thank you for your amazing wisdom and your energy and that pop of color that I always love. And something funny, so as I was going through my journey of looking for a therapist, your profile came up on one of the websites and I was like, yes. And I didn't know at the time that you were at Kingdom Fellowship, and I didn't know who you were. And I was like, I went to your website, no appointments, no. And it was all from just looking. I didn't read a review. Wow. I said, she has to be a dope therapist because of the way that she showed up. And I was like, I see me in you. So that's why I immediately reflect on making sure you show up properly across all your digital platforms. So I love that.
That means a lot to me. Certainly always wanting to be authentic in presentation and making sure that I deliver what I present. And so that means a lot. Thanks for sharing that.
I love it. Thank you so much, Erica. I truly appreciate you. The workshop you put me and Kirk through, I absolutely love. And when you have the next one, I will be your biggest ambassador. You need a testimony? We got it. We got you.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to that. Yes.
Wonderful.